Greetings and welcome everyone to Mind the Moment in Everyday Life. Now, each month we take a theme. We explore how mindfulness can support us in bringing that theme to life in the flow of our everyday lives. Now, our theme for this month of February has been mindful movement for happier joints and muscles. I'm your host, John Roberts from Living Well Community, the incredible library of interactive virtual wellness classes and on-demand programming created for you and curated for you by Point 32 Health and its family of companies, including Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare and Tufts Health Plan. Now, I'm thrilled to be joined one more time by your mindfulness guide for this month, none other than Mary Starr Green. Welcome to you, Mary.
Thank you, John. A pleasure as always to be here.
Now, Mary, last week you demonstrated for us a set of movements focusing on the head, the neck, the shoulders, the upper back. If folks had a chance to try any of these moves out, please let us know how it went. Did you find them to be helpful? Were you able to incorporate them into your daily life? We'd love to have you open up the chat, join the conversation. Any questions or comments you'd like to make, you can make them now or at any point throughout our session today. Now, Mary, speaking for myself, I've continued to do the moves you introduced to us in the first two sessions, and it's been amazing how aware, you might even say hyper aware, I've become of all these subtle sensations in my shoulders and my back, which I had mostly been ignoring before. It's like I'm mapping previously uncharted territories in my own body. Or another way I've been thinking about it, it's like when you see an impressionistic painting at the museum from across the room, but as you get closer and closer to the canvas, you realize the image is actually made up of all these little dots or brush strokes that you weren't aware of when you were looking at it from a remove. And I'll admit this enhanced awareness of body sensations it was a little bit disconcerting at first. I'd find myself just going about my regular business, sitting at my desk, typing, doing the dishes, and I'd suddenly become aware of these pockets of pockets of tension that maybe I would have just ignored before, but were now sort of begging to be noticed. And I realized these little pockets would have grown into bigger pockets of tension if I hadn't noticed them in the first place. And if you ask me, it's better to respond to those adjustments that you need to make sooner rather than later. It's better to know the bridge is out before you drive onto it, as opposed to only finding out the bridge is out when you're already teetering over the edge.
You had some amazing examples there and analogies that were very interesting. But I just want to say that, it just sounds like you're just experiencing a finer tuning of your awareness that is more body centered, which is wonderful because oftentimes, this kind of the way we walk in the world, the way we're posturing is just habitual and we don't even notice, like being in the forest for the trees. We don't see that. So, the fact that you had these experiences and noticings, I think, is the whole spirit of mindful movement.
Indeed, I think I'm actually combining the mindfulness and the movement, which is what you've been telling us to do, Mary.
Sure. Yeah.
And speaking of which, I wonder if you might just say a few words about what region of the body you're going to be focusing us in on today, and also why you think working with that region of the body in particular might be important.
Sure. Okay. Well, it's a little so the quick answer is hips slash low back. The bigger thing is that we're all kind of, our whole body is connected. The skeleton area is connected. So, targeting one thing will target something else, and working one thing will stretch something else. So, but that's the general area that we'll be emphasizing. And I think you asked why. Why would we be doing that? Well, that's depending on who's watching here. I would say that many of us and report, discomfort or low back, hips being tight, hamstrings tight, just feeling tight. And it's just a lot of it is our lifestyle. There are, of course, other reasons too, but we sit a lot and for prolonged periods of time. So we're going to try to counteract some of that through our practice today.
And indeed, Mary, Shanti just chimed in to say that sitting crushes us looking forward to this. Indeed, we're going to get uncrushed, I think, in just a moment here. But first, Mary, if you don't mind, I want to ask you a few questions before we got started today with the practices. I've been doing these movements that you've been teaching us most days of the week when I can these past couple weeks, and maybe it's my imagination, but it does seem like I'm in a better mood on those days when I make time to do these mindful movement practices. I'm wondering if that's a phenomenon that you yourself have experienced or that other people you've worked with have reported experiencing.
Well, first of all, I'll say that's great that you felt good and that you had that experience. That's wonderful, and I guess I'll reflect back that the fact that you had that sense of maybe how you were feeling before, whether or not you were conscious of that, but you had this comparison of, oh, here's how I feel now. And there was improvement from your standpoint is an awareness, again, within the spirit of mindful movement is great. I guess then yes, I would say yes in general for my students and myself. Movement is generally a good and uplifting thing for many of us. And again, not to oversimplify any of this because we all have different bodies, different experiences, and that can change day to day. But in general, although it's not the goal to feel better necessarily when we're moving as a mindfulness practice, it is what I would say is a byproduct of it. It can either energize us or maybe relax us, make us calm down a little bit, depending, bring a little bit greater balance.
I was thinking about something recently, Mary. I wanted to paraphrase Abraham Lincoln, if I may, who said something like, most people like some of the parts of their body all the time and all of the parts of their body some of the time, but almost no one likes all of the parts of their body all of the time. All of the time. I'm wondering, can mindful movement, in your experience or opinion, help us develop a better relationship with our bodies in the event we might have a fraught one? I think most of us have that to some degree. Is there any advice you might have for folks who want to try mindful movement, but who actually find it difficult to engage with their bodies close up, if you will?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, a lot of things are entering my thought stream right now. I think we get so many messages from our culture, just, that builds up. And certainly by the time we're adults, we got all kinds of stuff going on about what is desirable and not desirable. And that's all the external stuff. And to a good degree, it's, consumerism and external, this might go in a different direction, but just to say there's plenty of stuff out there that's external, but we have these bodies we have the one body in this life. We've got this one body and it's doing the best for us that it can, and so I say, for the journey we're on, because we age, I certainly know that we don't last forever. So, let's make friends. And it can feel like a courageous act, especially if you have not been doing much activity, to step into this. But, baby steps into this. And the whole spirit of mindfulness in general is curiosity. And, it's going to be fresh and different every day. And yeah, and to just have that same kind of sense of curiosity and kindness to whatever's there, because there can be a lot of difficult stuff that happens to our bodies with injuries and things like that. So, I just advocate for just, being really kind. Yeah. Make friends with all parts of yourself.
That's a wonderful sentiment, Marion. On that note, I've been appreciating the relative gentleness of the movements you've been showing us, especially because I'm at that age now where it feels possible that I will mess up my back if I just tie my shoes too quickly. And so as I've been doing the movements you've been showing us, it almost feels like I'm supporting the muscles and joints in my body in the way I might support a baby's head, like in a very sort of gentle way. But I'm wondering, is there a way in which any of the moves that you have been or will be showing us, do they have strength building properties, or is there a way to convert them into strength training exercises if that's something that we were interested in?
Oh, yeah, another great question. Well, the things that we've done, so this is our third session here, but in every single session, we've done things that where they might be called a stretch, or they might be called an experience, or there are elements of strengthening in all of them, although that's not the focus that has been guided. Certainly when we are practicing the deep breathing, the abdominal breathing, that is a type of internal toning. When we practice with elongating the spine and doing all the good posture things that are the foundation for the practices that we do in the different movements through the body, including today, we'll do that. That is all engaging our core muscles and muscles of the back and hips that all work together. So there are the subtle strengtheners that you might notice if you have not been practicing these things, and you do need to develop that kind of core strength. But yes, certainly. And the biggest answer then is, if you're a workout person, if you're a gym person, and you got your class that is a more vigorous thing, you can absolutely bring the spirit of mindfulness into that. If you're aware of your breath, aware of how you're feeling in that particular time, maybe a comparative like you did before and after. And of course, there are practices like yoga and Tai Chi, Qigong, other things that would be that a more easeful step into a mindful movement. But I think my point is, in the biggest picture, as we're moving through the world, we can bring mindfulness into it.
And I think, Mary, about my wife's nearly 100-year-old grandmother, who credits the fact that she's still walking around by herself, unaccompanied, without a walker, on the fact that she regularly does a gentle form of Pilates. Now, I know we're not exactly doing Pilates here, but I just want to say, this stuff does have an impact on our ability to stay sturdy throughout our lives, and no matter at what stage of life we happen to be inhabiting.
Wow. Well, that's impressive. Really impressive.
Folks, in each of these sessions, we have been and we will be giving you 2 mindfulness practices, one being a set of movements that you can do with us during the session, and then the second being a few suggestions for how you might bring those movements, or the spirit of those movements, into the flow of your life as a way to help you continue to build up mindful movement habits in your daily life. Now, Mary, could I invite you to take us into the main set of practices for today?
Sure. Take us in. Yes. So we've been sitting, or I think I've been sitting. I'll just personalize that. So where you could continue sitting, I'll invite you to stand. And as you're standing, just stand comfortably, naturally, kind of have equal amount of weight left and right under the feet, centering that up. And just take a few deep breaths. Just start with a few deep breaths. You might close your eyes and allow, the past conversation to be the past. To just breathe in as if you're breathing into the belly, up into the ribs and chest. Nice long exhale. So we can begin just by tapping into the breath. And we'll do a couple of things from standing to target some strengthening. I guess you could say some of this is strengthening, starting to stretch the muscles in the back of the legs. And we'll be targeting this and kind of stretching and strengthening for the back, the sides, and the front here. And of course, we're all into the low back. So just a couple words here about our posture, because we stand as we sit, right? So we kind of have the centers of the feet and the knees lining up over that, and into the pelvis, which I'm going to exaggerate this. I'm going to exaggerate like the bottom one pelvis to being forward, and see what happens to my spine. It will also happen if you're tipping out a little bit, which will spill you forward. So having kind of that neutral position of the pelvis and the shoulders back, and as if there's a thread at the very tip top of the crown of the head that is reaching up. Okay, so we grounded and we brought a lot of space into the body, and then just going to bend the knees. You can slide your hands down the thighs and let your hips draw back. Take a breath in and straighten up. And as you exhale, you can come on down. So any of these movements can be gentle. And in fact, you can just go a couple of inches. And if you wanted, you could step the feet wider apart and do more of a squat if you're used to that, onto the forearms, right, and up. So just because anything can be a little bit more strengthening or vigorous. You can take that. But what we're doing is just bringing a little circulation in here and getting out of our seats. So that's a really great way to do it. And here, just bend the knees a little bit. Slide your hands down here and notice my spine stays nice and long. I'm not rounded back. And just begin to see if you can straighten the legs back just a little bit. So if you feel a real big pull there, yep, that's the hamstrings, straightening and stretching. And bend one knee a lot, bend the other knee a lot. So if you have your hands towards the knees, you'll see that one hand essentially comes forward as the knee bends, and the other hand is going back because that knee is going back. So you're getting that feedback here at your hands because the hips are kind of rocking side to side. So like a little bit of stretching in the low back. All right, and then we're gonna come on up. So we're gonna do some stretches in the chair. These could be done standing and they would be a lot more about strengthening and balance. But for the purposes of our time here, I'll demonstrate it from sitting. So what we're going to do first is I'm actually going to come around like a quarter turn on my seat. And this way I can have my hand here to support at the back of the seat. Let's see, can you see? We'll go back just a little bit. All right. And so I essentially got one leg that's forward, and that cheek essentially is sort of kind of coming off the chair seat, but that's okay. That's what we want, because we're going to be targeting this leg, and we're going to be targeting the muscle that's in the front of the hip. Why? Because when we sit, and notice kind of sitting nice and tall here, pelvis is neutral, which means it's not, bottom of the pelvis isn't tipped forward or spilling this way, kind of in the center, elongated spine. And as I start to draw my foot back, and all of us are a little bit different, so we're going to have different degrees of sensation here. And so it's not really about how it looks and what's right or what's wrong, but what I've just done is I've dropped the knees, so I'm bringing space into the front of the hip, which for me feels delicious if I've been sitting for a very long time. You can accentuate it by essentially pressing the heel back and bringing the leg a little bit straighter. I'm still keeping that same neutral pelvis, almost like if I had a tail, it's tucked under a little bit. So between pressing the heel back and keeping my pelvis neutral, I'm actually feeling a lot of sensation here into the front. So tight hip flexors are a result of, the kind of lifestyle that most of us live. So we'll do all of this on the other side. Why don't we actually just scoot around and do that? Okay, so other side. So again, we're sitting, nice and tall, keeping the good posture in, and starting to, it always helps to take it slow. If these are big movements, and just breathe into what you're feeling. And this could be enough. You don't ever have to go more than is, what your body's telling you. So your body has a lot of wisdom to that. But again, you can explore it, explore that territory, that region of your body, and just notice where your attention does go. And do you want to bring in a little bit more sensation by pressing back through the heel and bringing a little bit more straightness into the leg? All of this, we can take nice deep breaths in and out. Then you can bring that in and then come to face forward, and just notice these little pauses between the movements as we come to stillness, noticing what that was like. So within sensations of the body. So next we'll target a little bit more towards the inside. So I'm sitting nice and tall, my knees are forward, hips are forward, feet are forward. So everything is kind of in neutral. If I step out a little bit through this foot, just bringing that foot out, knee out, I'm getting a little bit more stretch, maybe a lot of stretch there. So that's good to draw out, to bring some stretch in to the inside, and we can just do it more dynamically to feel that, taking it right into the hip. And you're going to lift the leg up and just swing the foot forward and back a little bit. So we're just bringing in, maybe just a little bit more energy into the leg. And then flex the foot, place the foot down, and I've come to the front of my chair a little bit. So I'm just going to turn so you can see what's happening here. Right. I'm actually in the front here. So as I lean into this, once again, I'm bringing more stretch into the back of the leg, the hamstring. But here, because we're sitting and we're really supported, you could take your forearms here. And if you want to just let this be, it brings more into the back, into the low back, you can have it supported, or you could just fold forward and just let it all go. Breathe in and breathe out. Okay, so you're going to let your own body, it's going to have signals that says, yep, I want to try this more. Nope, that's enough. Okay, so sliding your hands up the leg to support it, bring it in. We'll do that same thing on the other side. So we can start by having everything forward and then bringing it out and in. This is more the exploratory, like, oh yeah, there it is, right? The inner thigh into the groin, a really good area to keep stretched. And then I'm coming forward and I'm placing the heel on the ground and sitting nice and tall. Same thing. This is more of the drawing into the back of the legs, but you can decide if you want to come forward a little bit more and let the head drop and be more about what's happening here in the back. So each time we create a shape in the body, we can take the pause and settle in with the deeper breaths. And then as you're ready to come up, just slide the hands up the leg and place the foot to the ground. So what we just did was worked a little bit with the inside and the back. And now we're going to do just a little bit deeper into the one of the hip rotators. As you flex your foot a little bit and place either the outside of your ankle, or it might be more like your shin, whatever comes over that opposite leg. So you can take that hand. So I've got my left knee folded. I'm taking my left hand and I'm not actually pushing it into the knee joint hard. I'm just placing my hand there like a little, like a friend, offering a little support to press down. And breathe into that as you do that. So this next piece, just like we did before, where we can opt to fold forward, this is another nice one to do. And you could keep your hand there as like that gentle press down, or you could release it and let the forearms come onto the leg. This is another one where you might just allow the arms to what I call waterfalling. Just let them waterfall and let your head be heavy. So this may or may not feel like something that you want to do. But in the exploration and maybe taking any variation, stay with your breath and let that guide you. Again, it's not about what it looks like, but noticing how you're feeling. Okay, and then as we place that foot to the ground, check in. Notice how that was. Okay. So we'll do the other side. So lifting, flexing the foot, and then placing, just see where that wants to go. It might be the ankle, it might be more like the shin. And as you gently press down, what we're doing is creating more opening in that hip rotation. And as we're doing it, it's with a sense of care, not forcing. Same with the breath. Never forcing the breath, never holding the breath. And you just go, yeah, do I want to lean into this? How does it change the sensation? Do I want to fold forward? Do I need more support? Take a couple breaths here, a couple deep breaths. And forward, just practice that gradual transition to come up, placing the foot to the ground. And just notice how that felt. So just to recap, we did front, we did sort of the inner, we worked in the back of legs and deeper into the hip rotators, and everything else is really almost full circle about the spine. So all of this we've used, a nice tall spine, but we'll end with facing forward, and I'm taking my left knee, crossing it over my right knee. So this again is targeting more of a stretch in the outer hip. which can be lovely. But we're going to use a spinal twist, which will target low back. So I'm taking my left hand and I'm bringing it directly in back of me and just pressing down a little bit to keep the spine long. So this is setting up to take a twist to the left. So as I'm twisting, the whole torso is twisting. So it's like the belly's draws, the ribs, the chest, everything is turning to the left. And then I can place the right hand where it just naturally wants to go. It might be the outside of the knee or the thigh. Shoulders are relaxed. And the head, because we're already taking a turn to the left, you might turn a little bit more to the left, but never straining. Taking a deep breath into your twist. You could stay here for, as long as it feels comfortable, but we're going to release. And in the release, you're releasing hands and you're actually releasing the twist, so facing forward. And we'll finish out on the other side. Crossing knee over knee, again, to draw into the outer hip a little bit. So here, I'll just guide a little bit differently. Take a deep breath in and lengthen your spine. Feel the length in your sitting posture. As you exhale, turn towards the right and feel everything turn, the belly, the ribs, the chest. So it can be helpful then to place your right hand directly back of you. You've already twisted, so let that be your support. Other hand can come around because we're twisting not only the low back, but the entire spine here. And to bring that twist, again, into the very, very upper part of the spine, you can turn your head a little bit more to the right. And take just a really delicious full breath in and a really long exhale. Every movement we can do can be done in this spirit. So full breath in and a long breath out. And releasing, you're untwisting, unwinding, placing the hands here, placing the foot to the ground. All right. So that was the mini session targeting hips, a little bit into spine.
Mary, I have to say, I appreciate the beginning of that session there, how you were showing us kind of a proper standing technique, because being a little bit vain, I do find that if I'm standing correctly, I just look better than if I'm like slumping a little bit. So that's always good to keep in mind. Now, folks, please do keep any comments and questions coming. Shanti says, again, oh, my snow shoveling showed up in that practice. Susan says, these are easy to do and feel so good. Thank you, Mary. Teresa also says, thank you to Mary. By the way, Patricia says that she appreciates that these are gentle movements. So indeed, gentle is good, especially at noon on a Tuesday. So as I mentioned earlier, one of the things we like to offer in these sessions are some recommendations for how to bring what we're learning into the flow of our everyday lives. Mary, I'm wondering if I might guide those recommendations by asking you this question. Many of us sit at desks for long periods each day. Some of us, myself included, stand while we work. I'm wondering if you had a sense of what quote unquote bad habits one might look out for while sitting or standing, and if there's anything we can do in terms of movement practices that will help us to counteract those so-called bad habits.
Oh gosh, I think everything that we have touched on, John, and I can, stand, and I think I think we did kind of go through this, but the habits that we might tend to have are, asymmetry. So we're pulling out the hip. I mean, we all do it, but just noticing what we're doing, and having the spine rounded forward, collapsing forward, having the front of the pelvis tip forward, having the head down, for prolonged periods of time draws us inward. And so we want to stay tall, we want to stay open. And those are the kind of things, the same things you look for when you're sitting. So postural alignment. Yeah.
Okay, I want everyone to look out for these this week, no matter what you're doing. If you're sitting, if you're standing, anything in between. But Mary, I could not be more grateful for all the guidance you've gifted us with this month. Exploring these practices with you during these sessions has been just wonderful for me, and I think for everyone watching. I can't wait till we have the chance to do it again. Before we go, I'm wondering if I might pull from you some parting words of wisdom. Let me ask about those this way. What is the best advice you've received related to mindfulness or mindful movement? Or what is the most recent advice you've received that's been sticking with you?
I think this is an old one, but I find I have offered it out, and I tell myself this too: is start where you are. Start where you are, and the corollary, the other part of it is begin again. You know, that around movement or mindfulness in general. Keep it fresh. So those were three little things right there.
Thank you so much, Mary. It's been so wonderful to have you with us.
My pleasure. My pleasure. And thank you, everybody. It was great to practice with you.
Final word before we go from the philosopher Mark Johnson, who wrote, "Our reality is shaped by the patterns of our bodily movement, the contours of our spatial and temporal orientation, and the form of our interaction with objects." End quote. And so, if reality is indeed how we move, then may all of our movements be as meaningful and as mindful as possible. We hope to see you again, folks. Until then, please go forth and be excellent to each other.